So last week, Corinne went over, how we present the buyer presentation, and then naturally we should be able to work our way into the buyer representation. It doesn't bother me whether you send the buyer's representation with them if you want them to read it and get, a little more accustomed to it and understand it. However, I do think after the buyer presentation or somewhere during the presentation, you should be going over the buyer rep agreement with them, since that is required in our office now. We believe about 99% sure it's going to be required across the country, across the board, if you're a realtor, which means you're a member of NAR. So you're not going to be asking for anything that other agents aren't going to be asking for. So as we work through those things, we are going to get objections. Has anybody presented a buyer's representation agreement in the past and got an objection that they want to share?
Yes.
What was that objection? And tell us.
So I had some clients that are from another culture and they do not like to sign things. Specifically, they did not want to sign it and say that they were just working with one person. I guess in their culture, you go off of, your word. So they had a really hard time with signing it. And so I had to eventually, what I ended up doing was making it out for just that specific house that we were putting the offer in on. And that was the only way that I could get around it with them.
Yeah. The interesting part around that, and I'm going to share my screen here in a minute and go over some objections that I came up with and some responses. But culture was not one of them. Didn't even think of that one. So, and the problem moving forward is to even show one house, the way I'm understanding, and again, things could change as everything plays out through the court system, but you have to have a buyer's rep agreement before you can show one house. So if you're in the beginning phases, I think the answer to that is probably going to be shorter contract period on the buyer's rep agreement. So I want y'all to remember this buyer's representation agreement is a contract. So like all contracts, we can amend or do an addendum on them. Okay. So these things can change and again, when I'm talking about these things, these are things that we understand are going to take place. We're not positive, but the way I understand it, you'll be putting down, if the seller is not offering compensation and you put 2% down, that's what you're going to get. So if the seller's offering 3, you'd have to amend or do an addendum to your contract to change that commission. You can't take 3 because they're offering 3 when you had 2 on your buyer's rep agreement. Okay. And they're saying that you will not be able to put whatever the seller offers. You have to put a percentage price. You're gonna have to put an amount. And sometimes that conversation can be can be a little uncomfortable, but it's going to have to be had. We have this conversation with listings every day. So we need to be able, it should be natural for us to have the same conversation with a buyer. So I'm going to share my screen, and this is going to be objections I came up with. And so hopefully, can everybody see that buyer's agreement objections?
Yes, Rick, I have a question real quick. Did you say that we're going to have to put an amount
Yes.
on there instead of a percentage? Did you say that?
No. You can put a percentage or a flat fee.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But if you put $2,500 for your flat fee and they're offering 3%, if you don't addend or amend your buyer's representation agreement, you will get $2,500.
Right. Okay. Okay. Thanks.
So first of all, I want to say a lot of these objections you know, as you're getting better with your your buyer presentation and going over the buyer's representation agreement, most of these objections should be answered before we ever get to the signing. Okay, we need to give them all the information and hopefully present all the information that they don't have a lot of questions or a lot of objections. So why do I have to sign an exclusive buyer's agreement to work with you? And basically, I'm committed to spending a significant amount of time, expertise to represent you as a real estate professional and help you achieve your real estate dreams. Make the commitment to you unless I know that you have an exclusive agreement with me, like all professionals. And I'd probably add into there, like all professionals, listing agents, attorneys, accountants, whatever. Because a listing agent has the same agreement. They have a contract. It's just on the listing side. They're being totally exclusively represented, you know, the seller is by that listing agent. And so the buyer, you know, once we've shown our value in the presentation, you guys customize those presentations to fit you. But, you know, once you've shown your value, then they should not have that question. And hopefully that objection won't come up if we present it. So what if I want to work with another realtor at the same time? Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to work with two realtors. So it's like being married. You can only enjoy being married to one person, or you should. A buyer agreement is now required by brokers. And I think I would change that language to in our area. It's going to be across the nation. So is now required by realtors, and any buyer's agent you may want to work with is going to ask you for the same agreement. Going to be required. And I think over time it'll become a natural thing, and most of the consumers and the buyers will understand it, and it won't be a lot of these objections will go away or won't be brought up. I really don't feel comfortable signing an agreement like this. So a lot of times, and I already spoke to this, I've discovered that if someone is uncertain about signing this agreement, it usually means that I either haven't answered their questions to their satisfaction, or there's something that they haven't told me. Is there something that concerns you that I haven't covered today? Okay, that opens that up for them to bring up their concerns and for you to address them. But the idea here is we have got to make them feel as comfortable working with us as possible. And I get it. Back in, you know, as a consumer, not knowing real estate, I don't know that I would want to sign an agreement that is pinning me to one person for a very lengthy period of time. So, you know, unless that person was able to really make me feel comfortable with them. And what do I mean by that? Well, I would be comfortable if I had, and I'm going to address it here in a minute, but something in there about getting out of the clause, out of this contract. How easy is it for me? What can I do to get out? Because when you're putting a 3 month or 6 month period in here, I feel that's going to make some people uncomfortable with signing this and moving forward. Again, and what we teach mostly is referrals, and so if we're working with a referral, you know, the party that referred us has already validated us agent. That is going to make it so much easier to get these things signed. However, you know, the ones that are working like Op City or other lead sources, and you don't know these people, they've just entered, you know, you just got introduced to them through a computer or through a phone call, like, you know, like Op City does. Uh, you know, you got a little ways to go for them to feel comfortable with you. I mean, they were just, here you go. Now you got to introduce yourself. You got to build a rapport, and through that rapport, you're going to build trust, and then they're going to sign this. So again, that referral game, which we've taught even before this stuff came up, is so big. Agents, you know, the referral business is going to be so much easier to get these things signed, because there's already a level of trust because they're referred to us by somebody that the client knew already. So anyway, what if I want to work with a listing agent? I think that's going to come up some. So first of all, our team is highly trained and extensive experience representing buyers. If you are looking to hire the best representative possible, you are rolling the dice by considering working with a listing agent you do not know and whose track record with buyers is uncertain. Real estate transactions are full of landmines. The listing agent is there to represent the seller. We've got to get that message across. The listing agent is exclusive to the seller. So if you run into difficulties, it will not come down in your favor. Our goal is to prepare offers so they represent your goals, terms on your behalf, prepare all necessary legal documentation, even help you get out of the transaction. If you think you'll get all we offer by going to the listing agent, the listing agent is legally and contractually bound to the seller. Let's say the house you are buying is $1 million. That is a lot of liability. If for some reason something goes wrong and you need to go to court, would you and the seller use this attorney? And of course, the buyer would respond no. If that is the case, can you see that using the same real estate agent as the seller is clearly not in your best interest? Many listing agents like working with both the buyer and the seller because they get more commission. That's not you would. So, agency is legal in Tennessee. I dare say it's going to go away. It's I think 8 states already have it illegal. So it will probably follow suit here in Tennessee and be illegal eventually. We discourage dual agency. I do not like it. There's very few times that dual agency is needed, and I think there's only been one transaction total in this office that's ever been a dual agent, and there was problem. So if anything, if you're the listing agent and an unrepresented buyer comes, offer an agent, offer another United agent, and you can get a referral fee. If they insist on being unrepresented, make sure that they sign the COA that shows them unrepresented, and everything, all documentation shows that they are an unrepresented buyer. And then you, of course, obviously you would stay loyal to your seller and not the buyer. And I would explain that to the buyer. Okay, I can refer you to somebody. If not, you represent yourself. There's people out there that are savvy enough that they probably can represent themselves, but there's people out there that definitely should have representation, and that's where you come into play. And just know that you do not do dual agent. If it's people that the seller knows and they're their friends or whatever, they're wanting to buy the house, drop down to facilitator status. Negotiate, where instead of your listing commission is whatever, 5.5%, 6%, maybe now since you're dropping down to facilitator, it's going to be 4%. You're making more and dropping down to a facilitator status. So you can do that, or you can, but be very leery if you're a listing agent and you get approached about being a dual agent. Right? Don't let the money, lure you to falling into that. And please talk to me or Corinne before you decide to go that route. Let's make sure that dual agency is okay in this case. But there's very, very few cases that it is. If I want out, I think this one is going to be key. And I found this objection online. I can't remember which source I got it from. And I like this one. It says, if at any time you are unhappy with the service I'm providing, all I ask is that you give me 10 days to correct things to your satisfaction. If after that time you're still not satisfied, I will immediately release you from this agreement up until the day we have a signed purchase agreement with the seller. So if you're in the middle of a contract, we're not going to release it. Us as the office will not release them. Okay. We will take the contract. We've done this before, and where we have taken over the deal because things weren't going as planned. Okay. And that can happen. I mean, it's these buyers can get stressed to the point that they're not always thinking, or they just think everybody's out to get them. But anyway, you come talk to us but when you're under contract, we're not going to release them from that. Okay? Once we started a deal and we're going down that road, we're obligated to really finish that, whether they believe that or not. We'll get them another agent. We'll work the deal out. We'll work commissions out so that you still get paid something. But that's going to happen very, very few times. I do think on the front end, And whether we come up with a buyer pledge that we're giving these buyers, where it just talks about, hey, the 10 days. And I like this because if I have it in there that you bring up a problem, if I don't correct it in 10 days, gives me 10 days to address it, gives 10 days for that buyer to step back and think a little bit. Because some things come out in just that moment uh, that just, I'm done. I want to get rid of you. I want somebody else. They can just be frustrated that one day. The next day they're fine. So I think that 10 days, and maybe you want to do 7 days. I just think some days in there kind of calms it down a little bit, lets everybody step back and think about it. And then at the end of those days, maybe then if they're still feeling the same way, then give them the assurance that you will let them out of that buyer's representation group. So that way, if you've got a contract that's 3 months or 6 months long, they've got some assurance that, okay, I can get out in a matter of days if I don't want to work with this particular agent. Any thoughts on that? So what if I don't want a lengthy contract? Okay. We are happy to sign an agreement with you for a time frame that works for you. So let's, if we've got a buyer that is not in a hurry, 3 to 6 months, and we want them to sign a 6-month contract, first of all, you're going to have to explain to them, look, I can't show you house one until we have some sort of representation agreement. I'm going to be out there looking for a home for you. I'm going to be spending time with you. I'm going to be looking at off-market listings, making phone calls. Got to have some contractual agreement with you to move forward with this. But if it's somebody that's in a hurry, they want to be in a house. They really, they're moving here. The job starts in 60 days. They need to be under contract in the next 30 days. I think, talk to them about a 2-month. That's appropriate. So, have that conversation with them. I think that's the conversation we have when we're doing that buyer presentation in the beginning and going over this buyer's representation. And that I think what that does also is it puts them a little bit in control of the process, okay? By letting them, not just giving them a contract with 6 months on there, talk about it and say, hey, you guys want to be at a house in 3 months, so I'm going to make this for 90 days. Are you okay with that? Or do you have a suggestion on the day? Okay. So look at those things and on how you can communicate with them to help them feel like they are part of this and in control of writing this contract with you. Okay. Lisa, there's something on chat. Is that anything?
Question from, is there a copy of this buyer representation objection in Bullseye?
No, but it's going to be on the hub. So I will send this to Lisa and she will put it under today's winning playbook, and then underneath there'll be that download for you. So yes, you will have access to it. What if the seller does not pay any commissions? Am I obligated to pay the commission? I think this one's going to be one of the biggest ones because let's face it, I know if I'm going to be representing listing a seller, I'm going to be having this conversation with them. I think most sellers, I honestly believe, a lot of this is going to be business as usual. Okay? I just cannot imagine me going sit down in front of a listing and talking to them about this and explaining to them that, hey, these buyers out here, we're going to have a bunch of buyers out here that like your house. However, we're alienate probably 75 to 80% of them, if not more, by telling them that they're going to have to try to come up with their own compensation for their buyer's agent. And so when we talk that way to them and they see that, and if you think about it, when we're pulling comps for a neighborhood, if the exact the same square footage house in the same condition in the same neighborhood, sold for 300,000, 3 months ago, that house sold with a compensation paid to the buyer. We got, I don't see any seller saying, oh, that was 300 and I'm not paying the commission, so let's decrease my listing price down by 3. I just don't see that happening. Could it happen? Absolutely. I just don't believe we're going to see any kind of drastic price drop in houses because sellers don't have to offer a compensation. So our conversation needs to be, look, you want to net this amount of money, Mr. Seller, and you know, if that's the amount, then this is the compensation. And in that compensation that you're paying to me, I'm going to take X percentage and pay to the buyer's agent so that they don't have, the buyer doesn't have to, because that buyer probably has enough money for down payment and hopefully enough money for closing costs. And so, you know, and throw this extra into them will alienate them from this particular house. And we will not, because my job as a listing agent is to get as many people in here that are willing and able buyers, but to give us an offer on your house. And we're taking the able part away if we expect them to have to come up with extra money. I think most sellers will understand that. I think most sellers will go with that. I think you are going to have a few that may talk about it differently, but and I think Angela put one out. Didn't you share that on Facebook, Angela? The from remember the guy's name about that conversation, Angela. She may have left. So, all right, well, let me move forward here. What if the seller does not pay commissions? Am I obligated to pay? As a real estate professional, I have set a fee structure. In the event you wish to see a home where the compensation is offered is less than my fee, I will alert you before we view the home that the compensation being offered is either low or none. I'll explain what your options are and ask you how you would like to proceed. First, if you choose to write an offer, I will do my best to negotiate with the seller to have them cover my fee. In the event the seller refuses to negotiate, we'll come back to you and ask how you would like to proceed. If you still wish to purchase that home, in that case, you would be responsible for that. If the compensation paid by the seller ends up, please, if the compensation paid by the seller ends up being less than my fee, then if you still wish to buy the home, you would pay me the difference. You have dealt with this objection that is left is the close after our discussion today, and based on what I've committed to do, are you confident that I am the agent? So what we're doing here is one thing you can do is obviously we're going to alert them. So that's going to give them that comfort that, hey, moving forward, when I go, if there is a house that's not offering anything, you most likely are probably going to have to make some phone calls to the listing agent, find out what the compensation is. I think there may be something that comes out from this. I know Smart Offers and then Snap Offers. There's a couple offer platforms out there. I can see listing agents using those because in those, when you go place the offer, it actually they can put what compensation. So I see that becoming more prevalent. Us using some portal to do offers now. But if the buyer consumer knows that we're going to alert them to the fact that it's not this much. Now, you can also bring into the fact that one, I'm going to negotiate with the seller to try to pay for the whole fee. Two, if it's within reason, I'll amend or addend our buyer's rep agreement as necessary. That may be something that you can make them feel comfortable. They'll move forward. So again, I think all this is going to be making them comfortable, knowing that they have some control in the process, but yet we still have that agreement signed by them. Let's see, a bunch more on that. So that's all I got on those. Does anybody else have any ideas on some objections that you've heard or some responses that you may give after we went over those? So as you can see, I think this is going to form some of our presentation, thinking of those objections. I think we need to come up with ways to present these things before they even object to them. So hope that helps. We will add this to under this episode of Playbook so that you can print it, practice it, get to know it, and then any objections that you hear that you that are new or something we didn't talk about, please share them with us, and collectively we can come up with some ideas on how to respond back. Any questions or any comments?
I came in a little late. Did it have one on there where I've never had to sign one with anyone ever before? So why do I need to now?
Well,
Was that on there?
the first one would be kind of like that. It's why do I have to sign it? So
Okay.
yes, there's something about that on there. And,
Okay,
and
I
basically,
figured there was.
do what?
I figured there was, but I just
Yeah.
wanted to check, make sure.
Yeah, and basically the response is, look, I mean, the listing agent has an exclusive agreement to sell this house, and you're going to be spending a lot of time and effort and your professionalism, and you're going to talk about all that, and and present that for them to sign. So but yes, it's on there. Anything else? All right. Well, like I say, I think most of you have been using buyer's representation agreements already, changing a lot. I do think, though, remember, as these rules come into play and as we see them develop, one thing, about it is what we put on that buyer's representation agreement. That's what we're going to receive. Doesn't matter what the listing agent or the seller is offering. We would have to amend or addend the buyer's representation agreement to change that amount. So it is a contract. You can amend it. You can put an addendum to it. Anyway, we just got to be cognizant of the fact that that number we put there is what we're going to get unless we change it. So do not forget that. That will be different. That is different than what you're used to. Again, it's just hard for me to think that we're going to change that much. Hard for me to think that sellers are not going to still offer. It'll alienate so many buyers. So, any other questions, comments? Y'all have a good week.
Bye.
You go. Take care, y'all.